As this generation is wrapping up and we are headed into the next generation with the PlayStation 5, there are still a bevy of open world games coming out on both platforms, and that's what I want to highlight in this video, specifically 12 upcoming PS4 and PS5 open world games that you need to know about. With PS5 titles, mostly it's just cross-platform titles and things of that nature since we haven't had a huge info drop. As far as PS5 games, and I would imagine outside of the first-party games, a lot of the third-party PS5 releases will be cross-platform. Nevertheless, when the PlayStation 5 game drop does happen, I'll do an updated video sometime in the future. Without further ado, let's get right into this. Kicking things off and just announced, Assassin's Creed is back with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and this is going to be an even more grandiose open-world Assassin's Creed adventure. I mean, the Assassin's Creed games have just been getting bigger and bigger. If you compare Odyssey to Origins, well, Odyssey is a much bigger game, and now in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you are Eivor, a fierce Viking warrior raised on tales of battle and glory. You'll explore a dynamic and beautiful open world set against the brutal backdrop of England's dark ages, raid your enemies, grow your settlement, and build your political power in your quest to earn your place amongst the gods in Valhalla. Write your own Viking saga, visceral combat system, a dark age open world. You can lead epic raids, grow your settlement, and mercenary Vikings. This is going to be a game with a lot of content as well, and it will be out this holiday. Next up, we have Ghost of Tsushima, a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and one that is arguably probably the most anticipated PS4 exclusive coming up, especially with the train wreck that has been The Last of Us Part 2 in the last week. Nonetheless, focusing on Ghost of Tsushima, this game is looking fantastic, coming from the guys over at Sucker Punch, who are very familiar with open world games. They have done the infamous games, but Ghost of Tsushima is really taking their own open world gameplay design to the next level. They're removing waypoints, so this is going to be a game that really does leave you to your own devices, and it's up to you to recognize landmarks and figure out where to go on your own. I think that's going to be something that excites a lot of people, and generally the consensus that I've seen is that a lot of people are excited by that gameplay element. I think less hand-holding in games is ultimately going to be something people do really enjoy about this game. Nonetheless, this is such an important release for Sucker Punch because it's an opportunity to really put them on the map. When you talk about the big studios in the world, Sucker Punch isn't really heralded as one of the elite, but that can change in the drop of a dime. I mean, look at what happened with Naughty Dog after just one game. Their perception has completely shifted, and with Ghost of Tsushima, Sucker Punch's perception can completely shift as an even better studio. I am really excited for the setting of the game as well. In 1274, the fearsome Mongol Empire invades the Japanese island of Tsushima and slaughters the legendary samurai defenders. Jin Sakai is one of the last survivors of a noble samurai clan. To combat his overwhelming foes, he must pioneer deadly new fighting techniques, the way of the ghost, and wage an unconventional war for the people of Japan. While Ghost of Tsushima did see a slight delay, we'll get our hands on it come July 17th. Next up, we have another hotly anticipated game, and that is Cyberpunk 2077 coming from CD Projekt Red. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those games that people are pretty much believing right out of the gate that it is going to be a masterclass of a game, and that's because, again, it's done by CDPR. They are beloved in the gaming community, and so far what we've seen out of Cyberpunk 2077 has looked fantastic. Now, interestingly enough, Cyberpunk 2077, in terms of just world size, is not going to be much bigger than Witcher 3. However, what they're going for with Cyberpunk 2077 is density, a lively world, and you have this town of Night City that is going to be very alive, be very active, and honestly, from an open world standpoint, I would much rather than that than an open world that is a little bit barren, and I think they really are getting to a point where they're going to strike a nice balance between the actual size of the world and then the game also having meaningful content. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is going to nail that element. This game has been in the news quite a bit, and we should be getting more information during the Summer Game Festival, so that should be very, very exciting. Fingers crossed on a demo for that happening as well that will be playable for us. Next up, we have the Ubisoft new IP in Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones has been around for a little bit. We've known about it for quite a bit. Unfortunately, got hit with a couple delays, and the game is still progressing. This is a game that I do think the delays are going to be beneficial because it's a brand new IP, and you want to make sure you deliver something of quality right out of the gate. You don't want an instance where the game launches at a lackluster state, but ultimately it becomes better and better. That's been a Ubisoft MO recently, and I just want to see Skull and Bones come out of the gate as a quality title. It is a action open world title, and it is obviously based in naval combat, something stemming from maybe Assassin's Creed 4. Definitely the first time I really recognized that Ubisoft had a knack for this naval combat thing, and Skull and Bones seems to be a realization of that, and building a game entirely around that premise. Hey, that is something that could be very exciting coming from Ubisoft Singapore, and it drew inspiration from the naval battles again of AC4. We'll see how the game turns out, and it is currently rumored for sometime late in 2021. I would also imagine that this would be a game that does transition to becoming a PlayStation 5 game as well, initially announced for just current-gen platforms. By the time it comes out, it would probably be pretty advantageous to make a PS5 version as well. Next up, we have an open world game that's going a little bit under the radar, and that is Population Zero. Survival on Kepler is a race against time. Make the most of the remaining 168 hours or get turned into an unworldly being by the sphere. Complete quests to help NPCs explore the diverse landscape, survive wildlife, and other players uncover Kepler's mysteries and your mission's true goal. Now, this game will be arriving as part of Steam's Early Access program on May 5th, so we'll have an idea on how this game shakes out, but it is a massively multiplayer adventure RPG. Looks quite good, and we will have an idea of what the game entails once it does come to Steam Early Access. It's very interesting in the sense that you have a 7-day cycle where you'll explore the planet, complete quests, survive against hostile environments and different enemies, build, craft, and gain knowledge about the game world. Successful play grants experience points necessary to level up your player account. New levels give access to a variety of game modes and mechanics. I would imagine that the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 version of this game will be due out sometime later in 2020 or even 2021. Next up, we have a remaster. We have Saints Row the Third Remaster. I want to quickly cover this because Saints Row the Third is one of the more iconic open world games, and really probably the most iconic Saints Row title in the sense that it shifted Saints Row into the more zany style of gameplay that you see now. Yes, do we want a new Saints Row title? Absolutely, but the fact of the matter is being able to revisit Saints Row 3 is going to be rather exciting, and it was a great game back then. I'm sure it holds up rather well, and if you've never played the zaniness out of a Saints Row game, Saints Row the Third will be a worthwhile pickup. A game that you shouldn't take all too seriously, but still, if you want to talk about pure fun factor, Saints Row the Third had that in spades. Next up, we have a pretty interesting title, Maneater, an action RPG underwater. Experience the ultimate power fantasy as the apex predator of the seas. A giant shark terrorize the coastal waterways, tear swimmers and divers limb from limb, and give the humans a reason to fear you. Okay, from a premise standpoint, this game is rather interesting, and you can play through a full narrative story-based campaign narrated by Chris Parnell of Rick and Morty, Saturday Night Live, and 30 Rock, and set against the backdrop of a reality TV show. Battle fierce wildlife, including other apex predators, or fight against various types of human hunters, ranging from town drunks all the way up to the Coast Guard. Feed on humans and wildlife to grow your shark, and find shark loot to evolve your shark down multiple possible paths. They're going full-on RPG mechanics in this game, and I find that so exciting because the premise is so unique. Maneater doesn't have an official release date at this point, but hopefully it's out sometime in 2020, and it is a game being done by Tripwire. You might know them for their work on titles such as Killing Floor 2, Killing Floor Incursion, and games of that nature. Next up, we have the Eternal Cylinder. Players control a herd of adorable creatures called Trebums and must explore a strange alien world filled with exotic life forms, surreal environments, and the constant threat of the Cylinder, a gargantuan rolling structure of ancient origin which crushes anything it sees. This unique ecosystem is a massive procedurally generated land with unique animal AI, real-time world destruction, and organic exploration and puzzle design to create emergent gameplay that ensures no two playthroughs are ever the same. Your Trebums begin at the bottom of the natural food chain, but can mutate and evolve with new physical attributes and abilities by eating a variety of flora and fauna. The Eternal Cylinder is currently scheduled for a release sometime in 2020. Next up, we have another major Ubisoft open world title in Watch Dogs Legion. Yes, Watch Dogs is back with Watch Dogs Legion. Unfortunately, saw a little bit of a delay, but Watch Dogs Legion is coming back hard with Legion, and it should be out sometime this holiday, which is interesting because Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed typically don't see release windows around the same time, and I don't think it's the smartest thing in the world to release two open world games like this right next to each other, but nonetheless, Watch Dogs will be making a comeback, and once again, you'll have this open world to explore fictionalized representation of London as well, and you'll have notable landmarks, boroughs, and cultural styles of the city. Setting takes place within a London that has become a surveillance state. Personal liberties have been vastly limited, and citizens are constantly monitored in their activities by Albion, which is a private security company that acts as the city's law enforcement. Watch Dogs 2 was a great game that really built upon Watch Dogs 1's flaws and became a much better game. If they can do the same in Watch Dogs Legion, I think it can turn out to be a pretty good title. Next up, we have a game coming from the creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Gods and Monsters, another Ubisoft open world game that saw a little bit of a delay. You have a storybook adventure about a forgotten hero on a quest to save the Greek gods, embark on a journey to the Isle of the Blessed, combat mythological creatures, and defeat Typhon, the deadliest monster in Greek mythology and a face-off of the ages. It has a very charming art style, definitely not the mature tone that a lot of these other open world games are, but I can definitely get behind it. We need games that look a little bit different, and Gods and Monsters has that going on for it. As a new IP, always gonna have inherent interest in games like this, and especially if they can be successful and then latch on and become a successful franchise, even more power to them from the development studio. Hopefully Gods and Monsters is well received, as it will be out hopefully sometime in 2020. Next up, here's a game that I am super excited for. Unfortunately, saw a little bit of a delay as well, and that is Biomutant. Biomutant is a game that is kind of ridiculous, but at the same time just so over the top and cool. It's an open world post-apocalyptic kung fu fable RPG with a unique martial arts style combat system, allowing you to mix melee shooting and mutant action ability. One of the integral elements of the game is the customization. You can create your own character, and you can recode your genetic structure to change the way you look and play. This will of course affect your attributes. In addition to this, exposure to biocontamination in the world will lead to physical mutations like mantis claws and barb tails, while exposure to radioactivity found in bunkers from the old world will affect your mind and unlock side mutations like telekinesis, levitation, and more. So quite a bit of depth, and it has a vast and vibrant open world. A lot of post-apocalyptic games do go for a more of a dark and drab art style. I'm looking at something like a Fallout, but Biomutant is very colorful in presentation, and that's something that's quite unique for a post-apocalyptic title, and definitely goes with just the thematics of Biomutant as well. The game is scheduled to drop sometime in 2020, and it is being done by a studio known as Experiment 101, a brand new studio, but the studio is composed of a lot of people that have worked on titles such as Just Cause and games of that nature. And lastly, we have Dying Light 2. Dying Light 1 was one of the best games early on in the PlayStation 4's life, and Dying Light 2 looks to be a substantial improvement upon that game, featuring a far bigger world. You have narrative decision-making as well, and the game from a technical standpoint just looks outstanding. Techland has really accentuated visuals in games, and they did that with Dying Light, and with Dying Light 2, I would imagine that it would be exponentially better from that standpoint, and what they can get out of the PlayStation 4 will be rather interesting. I would suspect that a PlayStation 5 version would ultimately happen as well, but that has not been confirmed. Visually, the game looks stunning, and the open world is going to be even bigger than before, and again, if you didn't play the first game, go back and play that. It has some great parkour elements, great gameplay, pretty good story, and I imagine that Dying Light 2 will be a considerable improvement upon that when it does drop sometime, hopefully in 2020, maybe even 2021 at this point. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, we have a litany of open world games coming very soon, and I would imagine that more are going to be announced very soon with this summer game event happening, but these are the ones that I want to highlight in this video, and that's going to conclude this one. Let us know in the comment section down below which open world title are you the most excited for, and sound off with all of your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.